alaikum, everyone. This is your life coach, Nida, and I welcome you to Pondering Thoughts with Nida Jawed, where we are continuing with our Shero series. Today, we are welcoming Farheen Raza Abbas, who is coming in to interview for our Shero series and share from her experience and stories the wisdom and lessons she has learned through her experiences and challenge of being divorced and a positive mindset she gained from having found love again, to believe in second chances, and to give life another chance where many found themselves frozen after their first divorce. Oh, a little bit about Farheen. She has her own podcast called Musing of Modern Muslim, and is also a radio host and a writer. Plus, she is a member of Luncheon Committee for Texas Muslim Women Foundation, who I adore all that they do for women who are finding themselves in challenging times because of abuse or otherwise. And don't forget to click subscribe to Pondering Thoughts with Nida Jawed on YouTube. Farheen, thank you so much for being here. And it's my pleasure to have you. And I thank you again for sharing your experience for the benefit of our audience, inshallah.
Thank you for having me. And you know what? The one thing I want to really highlight in your topics is that these are things that are very common, but we just as a society, and I'm not going to say, certain societies, all society has a way of kind of brushing it under the rug. And we have this problem, and we need to, I think, the more you talk about it, the more it becomes normalized. And by normalized, it does not mean it's something good or positive. It can be, but it's also just, it's more aware. The awareness spreads, and that awareness is very important. So thank you again for having me on your show. And yes,
Of
so I'm going to
course.
talk about today. I'm sure people who know me and then don't know this, I am someone who actually is divorced. I was divorced many years ago, got married, got divorced, and then got remarried. And before anyone asks, yes, all my current kids are with my current husband.
You know
Everyone
that question was coming.
that question, you know what, when my oldest overheard me talking to someone else, and then that's the first question, and he's 10, and he's like, am I really, dad's son? I was like, yes, you are. You look just like him, bit. I mean, come on. It's like, and in hindsight, how many people say, look, in hindsight, I wish that never happened. I'm actually happy it happened, because it kind of shaped my life trajectory. It shaped the way my mind works now. It shaped my empathy towards people. You know how when you have an experience, you can empathize better? We
Right, of
always talk about
course.
building empathy and being put in each other's shoes and being more aware. But I really think sometimes either experiencing something yourself or knowing someone who's experienced it, you really build that empathy. So my empathy towards people whose relationships don't work out is much higher than maybe someone who has been in a happy relationship all their life.
Yeah. And in our culture, of course, there are barriers and a lot of stigma when it comes to divorces. But I am also glad to see that this is being accepted. There
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of ladies who are finding love the second time around.
Mm-hmm.
And there are those who are hesitant and who are falling under the stigma or wouldn't approach or pursue because they are assuming they will be judged otherwise. So
Mm-hmm.
ladies like yourself and others who are blossoming in the second relationship, who are
Mm-hmm.
pursuing it, they are the gateways of a promise that says, you know what? Your life does not have to stop because one relationship did.
Yeah. And you know what? Because I think especially and I'm talking about 13, 14, let's say 15 years ago from now,
Right.
definitely things have, changed drastically, where I am seeing a lot of parents when they're even getting their kids married, or like they're talking about marriage, they're like, you can always count on us. There's always like that doors open. Nida, I'm sure in our Southeast Asian culture, it was like up until 15 years ago, even sometimes today, it's like, you go to your husband's house and that's it. And when I got married the first time, it was just like, you have to make it work. That's it. There,
Mm.
you have to have the patience, you have to make it work. And that's why I gave it a good year and a half, because we could already tell, like I could tell almost within the first few days that I had made a mistake. And I was like, shoot, what do I do now? And then because this whole idea that no, you have to make it work, what's happening? It's you kind of justify that negative behavior. And even again, if you have those values and codes and you're like, I would never put up with that, never in my life,
Right.
you do. You kind of trick yourself into doing that. And then and that's what happened. One day the light bulb went off. I was like, what the hell am I doing? I am not this person. I can be more. And like I tell everyone, I was the shy one. So in my family, I was the shy, quiet one. This was not very expected of me. That was my first like action of like open rebellion, if you will. That's the best way I can put it. That I was like, you know what? No, I am not staying in this marriage anymore. I called my ex-father-in-law and I told him, like, look, I don't want to stay married to your son. I'm done. I am done. And it was like this girl, where did she like rise up from? What
And
happened?
that was probably the point where you got out of your shell. And I'm glad you did, because now you are here being the voice of wisdom for a lot of women who have been divorced or are widow and hesitant to even pursue the second chance,
Mm-hmm.
second relationship. And it is fine. It is
Mm-hmm.
fine to find
Yeah.
love again, because life puts you through a lot of tests and trials,
Mm-hmm.
turmoils, and you're supposed to um, find your strength through them,
Yeah.
find what you can do. And that's exactly what seems like you found, how far you can be pushed, and there you were getting out of your
I was pushed. I was like, okay, I pushed, beaten down. Nothing physical because we were in different countries. So, luckily for that, and I'm sure people who are in physical abusive relationships, I cannot, even pretend to understand that. But I can only empathize. But uh, when I finally said no, no more. That's it. I'm
yeah.
done. There was, of course, immediate relief, and then the same feeling that I had right after I got married. The first few hours, like, oh shoot, what have I done? Opposite. My mom's very soft looking, but very tough as a parent, and then my dad is like like the as the heart will melt easily. When he found out all the things I had been going through, he was angry that why didn't I tell him? I never told them.
Oh,
That was my mistake. I didn't tell them anything. I would always say, no, no, everything's fine. So of course they had no idea. But when I told them everything, they were mad at me for not telling them, and then mad at themselves for even pursuing this relationship, because it was an arranged marriage. So let's put that out
okay.
there.
Yeah.
And not all arranged marriages end badly, of course not. But this one was just not a match of minds, ideals, and values. It was a complete mismatch. That is empowering, but the fear along with it, because it's this unknown that opens up,
Right.
and unknowns are always the scariest thing in the world. I think unknowns, it's like, okay, I'd rather know I have something than not know what it is.
Exactly. And that's when the courage kicks in, right? When you do willfully step in the unknown, uncomfortable zone, just relying on yourself over anyone else. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you did that. So, Alhamdulillah, for
Mhm.
the positive life you have set yourself up for and the marriage you are in right now. Now, speaking of your current marriage, will you share with us that I know this is your second marriage. Is this true for your spouse as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But I won't go into
Right.
too much details about that, because I
Yeah, that's
truly believe,
fine. I just
uh,
wanted to get
yeah,
this background set up that both of you are coming from the same
yeah,
experience together
yeah.
in this
And
union.
yes. And we kind of learned, I think also when you experience something, you also build some more patience,
Right.
and you build a lot more perception. And along with that, you become picky. It's a good kind of picky. I think if nothing else, you can be on things that are make sense. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of girls lately are very picky on looks about guys and like who they want
Right.
to marry, and I'm like, please, that really does not matter at all. I mean, how many times, Nida, have you probably looked back at your wedding pictures, and I have too, and you're like, oh god, you look weird, or you're like, oh my goodness, I look much better now, I think, than I did then, because
I,
it's just hindsight, of course.
that's a really good point. Someone actually said women are like wine, they get better with age. So I was like,
Yeah,
ooh, compliment.
yeah, because you wisdom, the wisdom builds that, I think, that look for you. So when I became pickier, and I was very particular the second time around, I was like, look, I need to have certain values in place. Even I was like, I don't care about looks. Looks fluctuate. How many times, Nida, have you and I, we go through fluctuations in life? Each baby gives you a new set of feelings, and it's like, you go through those ups and downs. Sometimes your
Right.
hair looks great, sometimes it doesn't look great, sometimes you have great skin, sometimes you have horrible skin. So I put the looks card aside, which is a big thing to do at that age,
Mhm.
because at 21, 22, you're like, yeah, looks are everything. But I put that aside, and my number one thing was we have to be on the same playing field. Even if we don't agree on every single part of life, we have to be on the same playing field.
Because that is a very good point. How you pursued, how you set your standards, how you wanted to move forward with your life.
Hmm.
And I know with all of this, we discussed earlier that South Asian culture is not very forgiving many times,
Yeah.
especially when at a very young age you have taken a decision to
Hmm.
separate your ways and actually acknowledge yourself for being a human being for once,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So I would like to know, what were some of the initial challenges after your divorce that you faced?
There was a gap of between from the divorce to the second marriage, about well, not the second marriage, the second meetup. So
Second meetup.
actually,
Okay.
yeah. So between that time, there was a gap of about 2.5, almost 3 years, in which
Okay.
I was, you know single, divorced, kind of, working, just kind of do my own thing. My parents were, of course, concerned. They were like, and I'm the oldest in my family. So it's like, okay, and they're the classic South Asian parents who, worry about daughters that, as
Right.
long as they're settled and they have a life and then they're gone. And, we have to take this our responsibility. So they were, looking at prospects in the meantime. Many times it would happen that as soon as they learned of divorce, they would conveniently disappear. And
Right.
in my head, I would justify that by saying that, uh, you know what, it wasn't meant to be. Then if they couldn't accept that thing, then forget accepting anything else. And then the part that the horrible part of this time was the people who were so there was people in my community who were supportive, like pillars. They enveloped me in all this love, and like, it's okay, we're here for you, it's all good, you'll make it through. And then equally, there were people who were curious. What happened? Why did it happen? But not curious in the good way, but curious in the way that they were kind of overbearing. And then there were some people even who had daughters who I was friends with, who told their daughters, don't hang out with her anymore, she's divorced.
Wow.
And so it was like this black mark I had on me that, you couldn't even be in my vicinity. So I lost a lot of friends, and I gained a lot of friends. And then I kind of, these blinders of everyone's the best person ever kind of went off. In this time, the person who I think saved me was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. She's the only
Mm.
living grandparent I have. She basically would see me sitting in my room, crying my head off, or, going into like this black hole of depression and self-deprecation. And she's like, why are you wasting those tears? Here's a prayer mat. Here's this is your direct connection to Allah. Talk to him, cry to him,
Yeah.
because he will listen to you. Even though some people might be like, well, for you don't seem that religious. I was like, okay, you don't know what religion is, first off, whatever. But secondly, you don't know the relationship I have, because truly there was some duas and prayers and namaz and everything that really got me through that time. And I came into myself as someone who was doing 5 times prayer, as someone who was, reading up on things, educating myself on why do I practice this religion. So you
Right.
can take that very negative time in my life as that was negative, but then the self internalizing positives that came from that, you know what, it's up to him if I get married or not. If it's in my cards, it'll happen. If it's not, it won't happen. Whatever, I leave it up to you. 100% God, if you make it happen, it'll happen. Literally 2 days later, the phone call came that, oh, this guy, he's interested. I was like, what?
Well, he wanted to make it happen, and I'm glad
Yes.
that it did. He accepted your duas, prayers. That's awesome and so reassuring that if no one else, you have the supreme being who has your back,
Yes.
regardless of
Yep.
anyone else or their opinion or what they have to say.
Yeah.
You just shared that there were a lot of curious people that were not really in your benefit.
Hmm.
Of course, but second time around, you are ready to say, I do. I know right before that moment, there must have been some fears that were present in your mind before you actually committed. So I would like to ask you some of your major fears you had at that moment, at that time.
We were, the biggest fear I had was because my first was also from Pakistan. I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe that same culture shock value difference, because we're different. We're Americans are very different. And someone coming from Pakistan or India, or who's been raised there bulk of their life, it is a different country. It's a different
Right.
world. It's a different society. And so I was scared. I was like, what if it's the same thing? And then that's when I asked my parents. I was like, I don't want to say yes right away. Can we just talk? Can we just talk about regular things, get to know each other? And this was like text messaging was still new. Facebook was still like, yeah, Facebook Messenger was like, okay, still new. And I was like, can I just talk to him and just we could just discuss regular things
Right.
before we make that big decision to even consider getting married. So again, but the biggest fear again was that what if at the end of the day he says no after talking, after all this, and the same fears. I think the fears that anyone has in their first marriage, second marriage, fifth marriage, doesn't matter. It's the same fears that they come back. That what if this one doesn't work out either? Then what?
That's a very valid fear because many women, like what I shared with you earlier, are not pursuing second relationship because of same valid fears.
Hmm.
And now when we talk about experience, you said you gave it your all the first time around as well. And then you took a decision, you know what, this is what I'm doing, but it doesn't seem to be working. So how much effort it took the second time around to make this work?
I think again, like I said, when you get burned once, you get a little bit of self insight, you get some education,
Right.
and you get patience. So a lot of things, and again, like I said, I had a set of core values that I was big on. That I was like, no, this would be a deal. If this person does this, it's a deal breaker. I am not even pursuing it. Forget it. No way, thank you. So there were certain things that I said right up front. I was like, look, A, B, C, and D. They're important to me. If you have issues with any of these, I think we should just, calmly just say, I don't think we're a match and go our separate ways. Let's not even get involved in this. And then he shared his ABCs, like, okay, these are things of value to me. And we found out that we actually had more in common than we
That's
had
awesome.
difference. And we were like, okay, of course, a few differences, definitely. Like, my husband does not listen to music at all. He's very, devout in that thought that music is something that you don't listen to. I live off of music like crazy. And we were like, but is that a deal breaker? We found out that our core values were the same. We're, both moderately religious. Well, he's more and I'm, less, but it's like, well, we do, agree on religion as an important thing of the household and everything. We had the same thought processes on family, how much should parents be involved in your life? How much should you be close or not close or whatever? We agreed on all of those things. We agree on how to raise children.
Yeah.
So we started talking all the little nuances, and the more things we found in common, we were like, okay, I think we can make a go of this. We're good.
Okay, and I'm glad you did. I'm glad you
Yeah,
did. And it
yeah.
really helps to talk it all out, like know which page you're on of
Hmm.
your life or Iman even, or where you are going from here. What are your expectations? And discussing all of this makes it easy to know how much effort is needed from your side to make this
Yeah,
relationship work. So
yeah.
good job on both sides for that effort. And that's a really great learning point for all of us. Um, all of us in a sense that who are in a marriage, it's a
Hmm.
continuous effort,
Hmm.
that
It
okay,
is,
our phases are changing, our experiences are
of
changing,
course.
we are entering different careers or having another baby, and our terms and conditions with our spouses change as
Yeah.
well as we
You
move
know how
forward.
people say, I think this idea is perpetuated by Bollywood a lot. I really do blame Bollywood for this. And any like romance media type thing. They
Right.
make it seem like when you're married and you like each other, you get along, you're in love or whatever, that's it. It's unconditional. It's forever. Being burned once, you really have this idea of making an effort. You really try. And again, once, of course, I think when kids are involved, it gets harder and harder each consecutive kid. But again, I don't want to say that having kids means there's still no way out. It's all conditional, so you still have to keep working at it.
Of course. And it's a continuous work and it does come with conditions. Like you're absolutely right. Because, like I mentioned before, each phase brings a new set of challenges. And especially with kids growing with you, you're growing old and they're growing up. So
Yeah.
there is a lot of adjustment that takes place because
Yeah.
through every challenge, we learn so much about ourselves and how we adapt to our changing environment and society.
And we're
Uh,
very adaptable creatures. It's how
Absolutely.
interesting how adaptable. I mean, if this pandemic hasn't taught us anything, how many times have you walked into your closet and then felt like I don't need half this stuff?
Or walk in the closet and be like, I'm so glad I have this right now.
No, but it's
It's
funny
the
how
two
you
ways of things.
we realize that a lot of things that we thought we had needed or that we couldn't stay at home, but it's like, oh, okay, it's not so bad.
And we're all making it, and we're all making it.
Yeah.
And when it comes to making it in our relationship is also that much important in a sense, especially when we have given it all and give it everything that we have to make it work. I
Hmm.
know the time around is working, but the first time has been challenges. But however, every part of our life, every challenge teaches us something. What were some of the lessons you learned the first time around that helped you the second time?
The first time around was don't put down what you want.
Right,
Everyone, especially in our Southeast Asian communities, everyone else tells you what you should want, but you have to know what you want. What are you okay with? And that might not agree with what your parents are wanting. But I think sometimes a lot of people end up letting their parents' wants and needs become their wants and needs. And that I think causes a lot of these issues that we don't get along. Because, well, you never were meant to get along. You were two different people. But because
right.
everyone's like, oh no, this person has this degree, this person has this. I mean, honestly, a lot of things that my parents, when my current husband came around, uh, I mean, they were classic Desi parents. They saw, oh, doctor, okay, awesome, done, done deal. That's it. And I was like, no, I don't know what your schedules are like. Cause I mean, I have family members and people in the community who I knew were doctors and they had like these crazy, they'd be in the middle of programs and running outside, and I was like, oh, what a sad life. So I
Right.
remember I talked to my husband when we were just getting to know each other. I was like, what is your schedule gonna like? How much do I have to do a lot of things on my own? And he was honest. He's like, when I'm in the hospital, it's not you first, it's not family first, it's patient first. So
Mm.
I will ignore you if you keep calling me at the hospital.
And you're
Yeah.
not fighting for that portion of the time.
Yeah.
You're accepting it. And that's a major point. Having that open communication with your spouse really helps, especially in a particular area where you don't know what to expect and
No,
you
and
have an
there
open,
were times I
engaging
even told
conversation.
him like my expectations. I was like, look, I expect gifts and flowers on this date. Like I expect that. So
Right.
you know that. This is my expectation. And then he even said, he's like, look, I'm not one of those people. I grew up in Pakistan. These shows of romance were not a thing in Pakistan, so I don't know any of this. If you want something, you just tell me. And then we can let's just keep the communication open. And I know that I made that mistake in the beginning. I'm like, I just expect it. And then one day he sat me and he's like, look, I am not a mind reader. I wish I was because it'll be so much easier to understand everyone, but I'm not.
Right.
So if you want something, you want to talk about, just say it straightforward. So I've learned over the years that if I want my husband to do something, I'll just tell him like, can you please do this? That's it.
Straightforward. Just ask.
Ask. And it's like, I want to buy this. Can, can I have this?
That's
I want to
awesome.
upgrade this. I want to change that. Like I was like, okay, I'm asking.
And from my clients, that's something that I see as well. When you do away with expectations, you are entering a very calm zone where you are just allowing person to be and just
Yeah.
accepting. So
Yeah.
expectation to accepting, right? But when we talked earlier in our conversation, we talked about fears that came, okay, after divorce, this is my fear zone. And here I have a proposal, and share it with others from your experience if the second marriage was a completely different new ball game that you had to play and learn the game, rules of the game for.
The second marriage for me personally was a little bit of a surprise because, again, it was like the same thought. It was like, okay, guy from Pakistan, don't know, same. You think the same thing, but
Right.
I was surprised in that my husband, because I think this, and this may sound like a very blatant statement, but I kind of, in my personal belief, don't believe in doing this whole import export shadis anymore. Like you should really either live in the place you're going to be settling in,
Right.
alone for a bit. You need to get to know the place. I know so many people who just come here and have that culture shock,
Right.
and it is a shocking place. I mean, the US is so different than Pakistan with a lot of things, and especially the northeastern states, they are very, very open about a lot of things that people have never even thought of seeing. So it's a big culture shock, and he was watching them, so he was actually more aware of the American playing field when we met. So again, it was the classic Pakistani man, but he was aware of things that we were
Right.
going through, the things that are normal. And if anyone's seen Seinfeld, it's meant to be a very normal, average show about average people doing average things. So it was a good way that he saw a lot of things that were culturally the norm here. And I think because of working here alone for a few months, the culture shock of a lot of things wore down. The
Right.
way hospital systems are here, the way people are here. And again, even though it's a rural town, it was, men, women, different types of people, different things you'd see. And again, it was the Northeast, so there's a lot of the liberalness there. So he saw a lot of things, and he understood. And that's where the difference was that I figured out immediately was this guy is not just coming, so to speak, fresh off the boat. He's
Right.
been here. He knows here. He's watching TV here. Even now, his age group, they all know what's happening in Pakistan. Some of them don't even know what's happening in the US. He's like sitting downstairs watching CNN right now, which he watches religiously, and he
Right.
upkeeps because he's like, well, this is the country I've chosen to live in, so I have to live here. And now, of course, you have a wife who's from here, and then you have
Right.
kids who are Americans. So it's like, no, well, this is our country. And this was the first thing that I realized about him, that he was so aware of things like even simple things that you wouldn't think about, Nida. Like when you take someone who's immigrated from somewhere, and and you take them out to, let's say, even I've seen this happen where I knew someone who took a potential rishta out to a pizza place, and when they started asking for ketchup with pizza, which is a very common thing in Pakistan, which is fine,
You
but
don't
it's like,
find it here.
and then they eat with forks and knives because that's very common there, and over here it's like it's pizza. So these small little nuances that would make like a small, like these little barriers were not between us, because if you look at the relationships that actually work are people who are similar, not the opposites.
And funny you said that because my next question is about chemistry and compatibility. So,
Good.
in a life coaching world, most life coaches, especially like myself, who work with couples in relationship coaching, we
Yeah.
tend to focus more on chemistry between the
Yeah.
couple rather than the compatibility. Having differences is okay,
Yeah.
but you have to learn to accept them
Yes.
and work with them, and where you stand when it's about chemistry, when it's about relating to each other, when it's about sharing energy. Who are you when you're put together in a room? Like, for instance,
Yeah.
you have shared that you make time to go on dates, whether lunch or dinner, and just be in the presence of this silence and in each other's company,
Yeah.
right? So when we talk about marriage, and not first, second, just marriage overall, so chemistry or compatibility, what works?
I think you need some chemistry. You do. Compatibilities, again, you can, for example, I did not have any idea on golf. My husband was a big golfer, and he taught me. So it's like those common activities you can build again as a relation. And that's also the fun of a relationship, that when you meet each other and you find out, like, oh, I like this TV series. You want to start watching with me? And it's like you find things to do together, and that's the whole fun of it. But you need to
Right,
have to want to be in each other's company. You can be compatible with 100 other people, but you might not want to see them on a daily basis. You're like, okay, yeah, well, okay, but with a potential spouse, you want to have some chemistry. You want, like, the classic, the
right.
spark. You need that there. You need the spark there to want to the same things. I love
Absolutely.
I love Italian food. I should have been Italian. That's how much I love Italian food. I really should have. And and my husband, he likes the random lasagna here and there, but he's not one of those like, oh, pesto and this all these like fancy
Right.
Italian food. And it's okay. I know a lot of people now that I see, especially with this um social media aspect added to things. I'm seeing a lot of people wanting their spouse to become a photocopy of them.
True.
Even vacationing, I know so many couples who have trouble now when they go on vacation the first time, they're like, well, no, I wanted this and he didn't want to do that, and da, da, and she did. And I'm like, well, what was the problem? And they're like, well, I love sightseeing and they want to spend time in the hotel room, and that's it. I was like, well, why don't you split the days up into some days spending at home, some days spending out? And that's how we were, me and my husband too. I'm the go-getter, like, okay, let's go, let's get up, let's get go. And he's the one like, okay, I'm on vacation, let me sleep in. And in the beginning that was friction, but we, instead of letting that friction break us down, you have to be go-getter and we have to go get together, and that's it at all times. So I think that's a big thing that people need to learn. And I think that falls into patience and
Yes.
accepting. Yeah.
Absolutely. Patience and accepting. Wonderful words that you have used. And also, as a life coach, what I tell the couples that I'm working with is that having an opposite of you, or
Hmm.
someone who is not compatible, not liking everything, a lot of that you do, is take it as an adventure. The differences are a lot for you to explore. Take it as an
Hmm.
experience. Take time to discover your spouse in the same way you would experience or and explore some new environment, new place.
Yes.
You choose to go for vacations, right?
Yes.
To places you have never been. This is
Hmm.
a person who has all these traits, likes and dislikes you have never acknowledged or gotten to know before. So
Yeah.
explore this person, have fun doing so. That's one of the
Definitely. And
past.
you have to, you have to learn that you a new experience each time. uh Honest to goodness, I was not a big late night TV fan. And then and now because of my husband, I'm the one watching like Trevor Noah and all them before him. Now I'm like, I know what's going on.
Not so bad. I like it so much. So, other than your contributing in your likes and dislikes, how has he contributed in your positive mindset?
He is my biggest support. He's the opposite of what a Pakistani man usually is, honest to goodness, because he is all about vocalizing your opinions. He's the one. I mean, he's the one who told me that when I said like, oh, I think radio is something I can do, and he's like, yeah, yeah, go do it, dude. He's the one who actually like bugged me. He's like, why aren't you podcasting? Because he's a big podcast listener. He loves, that's all he does on his drives. He listens to podcasts. He's like, it's been years since I listened to NPR or anything. I'm just listening to podcasts of people and their opinions and their thoughts. Of course, and again, we've grown into each other in the past, 11 and a half years, almost 12 years if you count our, our courtship for a year. So
Yeah.
we've grown into each other and we're comfortable and we know what we can. And I tell him too when he has an opportunity at work that, there's a opportunity to grow or get a different position or something else. I'm like, take it, do it, you can do it. And because we support each other so much, it's worked out. And again, we've come through a lot of negatives in our life too. We've definitely seen negative. We're not the perfect couple. We have fights, we still do sometimes. And that's all normal. When I hear people say, oh, we never fight, I'm like, well, are you really talking then? Because that's part of the deal. You should,
Right.
there are going to be disagreements and many things on raising kids, on spending money. Money's always a problem. Day one, have those date
Set
nights
the
or
great
date days.
foundation to begin with
Yeah.
and build
And
on
don't
it.
and don't make it like a set schedule that we're having it on Sundays and that's it, because then it becomes redundant. I
Yeah.
also think of variety in that. Like, okay, we have a random Wednesday off or we have a random this day off. And don't always do the same thing. I mean, we're limited to that because again, we kids and schedule and whatnot. But in the beginning, we do different things. There was days, Nida, when in the beginning, when it was just the two kids and they would be in daycare, my husband and I would go golfing. Dates have to be these big events. They can literally just be a coffee. Even if all you have time for is 40 minutes at Starbucks to get coffee, take it, do it, and filter them all over the place. No one says that if you have date night is on Friday, but then you get a random Tuesday where you have like, an hour to just sit and talk. Take that too and take Friday night. Take all those moments. You have to. Otherwise, a lot of the problems that people have is they start living for other people, and that could be your in laws, your parents, your children. You forget living for yourself too. And
That's a
that's
very
very
good
important.
point. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you're absolutely right on this aspect as well. Even now in today's age, I have witnessed people who have forgotten themselves
Hmm.
just to please everyone else. Great point. Now, with that, we're near to the conclusion of our interview, and I would like you to give an advice to all the ladies who are finding themselves stuck in a sense that they're not willing to move forward in their life with a new relationship and do have proposals waiting on their answers, but they're finding it hard to accept your wisdom, your advice from your
On that.
experience for
Oh,
them.
is there wisdom, that word again? Well, there's this
Yep.
new concept I've been really reading up on, and that is regret. So I've been reading up a lot on regret, and I've been thinking about, if I don't do this now, will I regret it later? And it's a lot of foresight in this. You have to think about the future self. Like, okay, if I, let's say, if 10 years from now I don't do this thing, this decision I have in front of me, will I regret it? And even if you have a small, like 1% chance that, yeah, I might regret it, do you want that regret? And if you don't want that regret, what's the harm in trying? Think about those. If you could prevent a regret, would you, or would you still take it?
That
So
is
that's all I'm going to say.
That is a beautiful, beautiful message and a lot to ponder and think about also. Thank you so much, Farheen, for sharing your experience and all your lessons that you have learned and how you have blossomed and bloomed into your new relationship. Mashallah.
Thank you so much.
And a lot of prayer for your relationship to continue blossoming and both of you growing into each other with love and prosperity, inshallah.
Thank
And a
you.
prayer for all those who are seeking new love and are about to enter a relationship and give love a second chance. I pray that Allah connects, God connects everyone of the pure heart with the pure heart, that you
Hmm.
both can grow into each other.
Yeah.
Give both of your, both give each other chances to blossom together like Farheen has, mashallah. And
Thank you.
that's a
It's
great
work. I won't say it's
story.
not work. It's work, but you have to, you can do
Nothing
it.
comes easy. Nothing comes
Not,
easy. You
nothing comes
just,
easy. And you
you
should never assume it's going to be easy.
absolutely nothing comes easy, and you have to be willing to put in the work. And that comes from starting taking a chance. So
Yep.
thank you so much, everyone. Keep loving, keep living. Have a nice day and rest of your life. Don't forget to subscribe to Pondering Thoughts with Nida Javed, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.